Good
Yeah.
movements are like deposits into the bank of your back, your neck.
Yeah.
We got to have lots of good movement deposits throughout the day to help deal with those negative postural lifestyle movement patterns that are giving us issues. Because those bad movements are constant withdrawals. So we need lots and lots of deposits throughout the day to begin to change that.
Pain isn't just about one joint, one injury, or one bad day. It's your body asking for attention, and the right guidance can change everything. Welcome to the Optimal Health Guide. Today, we're going to be exploring something that can be really like a light bulb moment for a few of you that are listening in. We've hit on this before. The place where you feel pain is oftentimes not the place where the problem is coming from. So we're going to talk about how the body works as a system and how back, neck, and shoulder pain in particular are often more connected than we realize. Hey, Josh, great to have you here today. Josh, our Optimal Health Guide. Give us an update on how things are going for you this week.
We're doing really well this week. Thank you very much.
Awesome. That's great. Well, before we jump into the questions that we've got today, if you're a listener listening into this podcast, and while you're listening, you're thinking, gosh, I wish they would talk about this, you can actually submit your questions to us. You can go to podcast.vancept.com and send them to us. We'll read every one of those submissions, and we'll be answering real listener questions in future episodes. So there's a really great chance that your particular question is going to be aired in a future time frame. So love to be able to have your voice in there. All right, Josh, question number one. Again, like I said already in the setup, we've talked about referred pain to some degree. So I'd love for you to kind of set the stage for that and then to take us deeper into how these systems are connected. So why is it, again, that pain often shows up in one place, even though the real problem is somewhere else?
Yeah, Michael. So referred pain is definitely one of the big causes. Referred pain can be caused from, I would say 2 to 3 different reasons. One of them maybe more indirectly than direct, but nevertheless, I'll mention that. So the first one is obviously referred pain from the nerve. So you have a nerve in your neck that's getting smashed and
Yeah.
pounded on, and it causes pain that is elsewhere. I mean, you may also feel some pain in the neck, very common, although sometimes people don't. And they're like, well, if it's from the neck, I don't feel it. All I feel is down here. And yet that nerve is just getting crushed. In any case, so that pain referred down the arm into various different parts of the arm based on what nerve root is being compressed. And frankly, the back is the same kind of scenario. You know, if you have a crunched nerve in the low back too, you can get referred pain down into your butt, down or leg. Okay, same idea. Now, another reason could be myofascial trigger points.
Okay.
Now, myofascial trigger points, that's a big word. That's a $10 word, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say this is one of those $10 words because I'm taking notes here and I'm like, okay, I think I can break down the spelling of it, but go ahead. Give us the
Let's break
definition
it
of
down a little bit.
myofascial.
Myo means muscle, and fascia basically is this white connective tissue that covers all the muscle. So if you ever take a look at a chicken, there's this very thin coating over the chicken. That's called fascia, over the muscle,
Okay.
over the meat. Anyway, so myofascial trigger points are areas of the muscle which have been kind of stuck in a contracted state. And so it's causing pain in a typical pattern. And there's these 2 great books by Travell and Simons, and they've basically mapped out all these trigger points throughout the entire body. But sometimes those trigger points aren't necessarily localized. Sometimes they can mimic nerve pain and cause that pain in other muscles or other areas. But it again is referred pain. It's not truly nerve, but it is referred pain still. Okay, so you can get that pain elsewhere, even though the problem may not be away. It may be more proximal or whatever. Okay, you following?
I think I've got you so far.
All right.
How about, okay, so this has to do with, I'm trying to differentiate the two. Nerves are, it's because something's happening with the nerve. And then you're saying the reason why this other referred pain could happen with these trigger points, these myofascial ones, is because something in the fascia is taking place that is creating that referred pain. So, okay, I think I just talked that through myself. Like, why are these truly different ones that both fit into the referred pain category?
Yeah, and it's actually an area within the muscle that's basically, so the part of the muscle actually, there's these calcium storage areas in the muscle, and the calcium is what makes the muscle contract. So it dumps it all, and so it gets stuck in this state of contraction. So you kind of have to break up the trigger point. It's actually the
Okay.
muscle. Okay, but
Okay.
we call it myofascial trigger points. All right.
Okay, great.
Okay.
You
Now,
said you had one
another
other
thing
one too.
is compensatory patterns. Okay,
Ok
so not so necessarily nerve related, but again, examples like shoulder pain from shrugging due to poor strength or poor shoulder mechanics. You know, you're doing these compensatory patterns, so you're feeling pain elsewhere.
Yeah.
Then, like, maybe it causes a strain in your upper trap because of, weakness in your shoulder. So it's at a little bit of a different site. Yeah, so that poor strength can cause that pain in the upper trap, not necessarily from the nerve root itself, but again,
Okay.
the compensatory pattern is causing those alternative movements, which is causing problems, and we feel pain down the road a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. You've kind of hit on this to a degree, but maybe you could choose one particular real life example. Is there a patient that you've worked with where they came in, hey, Josh, I've got this stuff going on here. You discovered actually it's connected back here. Maybe walk us through one real life scenario where that's taken place.
Yeah, like with a myofascial trigger point, for instance.
Yeah, sure. One or whether it had
Okay,
to do with the nerves. But yeah, since you
sure.
chose myofascial, let's do it.
Okay, so there are myofascial trigger points, especially in kind of the buttock and hip area, that can mimic like that sciatic pain. Okay, so you're digging around and finding those tight muscles, and then they feel like, oh my, I'm feeling that pain that's radiating down the leg. So actually, it's not an uncommon problem at all. So we see that fairly often, but a lot of
Yeah.
muscle stuff causes some of that nerve nerve feeling pain that's not truly nerve root.
That's great. And again, like you are always doing in the recordings that we're doing, by the time you are able to get to clarity on the real problem, then you're able to get toward the healing and recovery, the optimal life that somebody is longing for. So I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong here, if somebody comes in and thinks, like in the scenario you just said, I've got this sciatic issue, they keep trying to treat for whatever they think sciatic is going on, but you're actually then getting to the root cause and getting to real healing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, you got to rule out that it isn't actually sciatic or low lumbar nerve roots through all your testing and everything else, and then kind of try to provoke it by finding those muscles that are actually tight that are causing, and often you kind of put that pressure on that, and it'll provoke it
Yeah,
and cause those symptoms. So then you know what the real cause of the problem is, and you start to deal with that, and their symptoms begin to abate.
that's great. Okay, well, again, thinking again, this back, neck, and shoulders and how they're interconnected. How do things like posture, lifestyle, and daily movement patterns connect the back, neck, and shoulders together?
Regular movements over time, as well as positions that we sustain over time, are going to impact the body structure, strength, and muscle length, for instance. So, if you're a person that sits at a desk a lot,
Hmm.
we tend to get tight in the front of the shoulders. We tend to get weak in the back muscles, as well as kind of a forward head and kind of
Yeah.
rounded shoulders. That kind of I refer to as a desk jockey
Mm,
position. Okay, because we're always in that position. Also, we
yeah.
tend to get a little tight in the front of the hips. Okay, and the hip flexors. All right. So we got to counteract that from sitting 8 to 10 hours a day in those positions by building good postural habits and lifestyle habits that
Yeah.
would include like stretching. We'd have to stretch those hip flexor muscles in the front. We need to stretch the front of the shoulders, kind of work on our neck posture. Sometimes our joints get a little stiff. We got to mobilize the joints, stretching
Yeah.
some of the base of the skull muscles, and then working on strengthening to get things back up where they're supposed to be,
Yeah.
and then trying to maintain that and breaking up that sitting posture. So we're not doing it for 8 to 10 hours a day. We're breaking it up. We're doing a little bit throughout the day, maybe standing up, walking around for 30 seconds to a minute, just getting out of that posture, thinking of elongating those muscles, maybe doing a few shoulder blade pinches just to get out of that, activating some other muscles. So we're
Yeah.
trying to begin good posture habits and lifestyle habits with the stretches, and we want to make good movements. And I've talked about in the past, good
Yeah.
movements are like deposits into the bank of your back, your neck. You
Yeah.
kind of fill in the blank on that. But we got to have lots of good movement deposits throughout the day to help deal with those negative postural lifestyle movement patterns that are giving us issues. Because those bad movements are constant withdrawals. So we need lots and lots of deposits throughout the day to begin to change that.
Okay. Are there other categories of work? I mean, you identified this desk jockey, that has a certain set that you've walked through. Are there other employment related or, physical related jobs other than desk jockey that you see regularly?
Different occupations have different kind of associated problems.
Yeah.
People that maybe are more mechanical and in the sense that more like mechanic type things, they tend to have a lot of overuse of the forearm, potentially neck issues, shoulder issues that
I
have to
see.
be
Yeah.
addressed. People that maybe like carpet layers or other people, they tend to have a lot of knee, low back issues. It kind of depends on what kind of a occupation, but every
That's
occupation's kind of got something
yeah.
that's gonna have a potential impact, and you gotta kind of think about, "Well, what am I doing all the time,
Yeah.
and what can I do to get out of that position periodically to change that position, to
That's great.
stretch, to do something different so that I'm not more prone to
Yeah.
getting problems down the road."
Yeah. Okay. So you've got a couple of different options here, the desk jockey, and then you've got somebody who's working more physically with like in the mechanic realm. Give us maybe just a practical tip. You outlined it to some degree, but I'm just thinking like, how often does somebody need to change their body position and try some of the stretches that you talked about doing? Is this once an hour, once every 30 minutes? What would you recommend?
Well, I would say if you can get out of that prolonged position for 30 seconds to a minute every 30 minutes, that would be a
Beautiful.
good deal. Okay, because we gotta just break it up throughout the day, change
Yeah.
the position.
It's incredibly helpful, and that's kind of refreshing to hear. 30 seconds to a minute, that's doable. And then every 30 minutes, you can sustain work for a period of time and then make a break. I actually bet that's probably really good for the brain as well to pause and re-engage versus just power through.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the other thing is just doing it regularly, doing it
Yeah.
regularly. Anything, it doesn't have to be long periods of time. If you could do maybe a minute, that's great.
Yeah.
But man, if you're kind of under the gun and you can only do 30 seconds, take that 30 seconds. It's going to be at least of some value and some help.
That's great. Make a deposit, yeah, into those muscles. Great. How about the next question? Why does treating just the painful area often fail to solve the problem long term?
Okay, maybe a few different reasons, two, three. Obviously, if the painful area is only the symptom, you're not going to get full resolution. So you got to
Yeah.
make sure that the painful area is actually the problem area too. It's kind of
Hmm.
a no-brainer, but when I was early in as a physical therapist, made that mistake a few times. And why isn't this
Yeah.
getting better? You keep hitting your head on the wall, eventually it's
Yeah.
going to hurt, and you got to figure out the change that needed in order to get the result. Okay. So that would be one obvious reason. Also, chronic problems. They often
Okay.
need changes that are more long term, such as
Hmm.
posture, body mechanics, correct movement patterns, which we've all talked about,
Hmm.
to normalize the tissue. So you've been sitting at a desk for 10, 20 years and you've got these muscle tissue changes and this weakness. Well, don't expect that to change overnight. It's going to take
Yeah.
time. And the more
Gotcha.
chronic the problem, the longer the time it's going to take
Hmm.
to get that flexibility again, to get that range of motion, to get the muscles stronger, and to develop to deal with the soft tissue changes that have been happening over a substantial period of time. And then also to correct the movement patterns in order to normalize that tissue and strengthening to promote the correct movement. So all that's going to take time and it's not just going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't really talked about chronic pain directly. I can see the longer ramp. It's taken a person maybe longer to get there and then a longer ramp to be able to get out of that. How about before we wrap up, anything else that you want to unpack further or you maybe wish that I would ask on these topics?
Hmm, that's a great question. Let me talk one more kind of reason, kind of going back to this question.
Yeah,
Sometimes there can be more than one problem causing symptoms. We need to make sure that say we're having pain down the arm and, we've got a nerve injury. Well, there may be a second nerve injury, or we may have some other issue. Say,
yeah,
maybe we've got some pain on the forearm that's muscular in nature, along with some pain in the neck causing pain in the arm. So you got to make sure that you're dealing with
makes
all those
sense.
things that are generating those symptoms.
Yeah, it doesn't
Okay.
just
So it
come
is
back
possible to
to
have more than one thing going on at a time.
okay, yeah, as it doesn't have to mean that it's just comes back to one issue. It could be multiple issues, but all of them would be considered roots that you're drawing it back to. That's really helpful. Okay, well, that's great, Josh. I appreciate again the highlight that you're bringing that the place that somebody is feeling pain is oftentimes not the place that you need treatment. And it is really important to be able to drill down into what is that root cause that's going on. So, if any of you are listening to this conversation and you've been dealing with pain that keeps coming back or just doesn't seem to match where the problem actually is, one of the most helpful first steps is actually just getting clarity on how everything is connected. And you can start that process with a free consultation at Advanced Physical Therapy, where Josh will look at the full picture, not just the area that hurts. And you can go there at vancept.com/free dash consultation. We'll include a link to that in the show notes. Thanks everybody for listening in to today's call.